Instant coffee is not the only strange convenience of modern life. Ziggy, what day is it?
Today is Tuesday, May 28th.
Ziggy, what feast day is it on the Christian calendar?
Today is St. Luke's Day. St. Luke the Evangelist, one of the four Gospel writers, is honored on this day. He is also commemorated as a physician and healer.
Alas, sometimes our electronic assistants get things wrong. Most of us think that the Feast of St. Luke is in October on the 18th, so I guess we still need physical calendars. Now, I have long, I confess, been rather fascinated with calendars, and I am not the only one. We sometimes want things to be calendars that may or may not really be calendars. And I remember a few years ago, there were a lot of folks, even in modern United States, who thought that certainly the world would end in, I guess it was the year 2011, because that was the date the Mayan calendar expired. The Coptic Church said the world will at least last till 2026. I had at that time a small and rather wonderful copy of the Book of Common Prayer that was very convenient for funerals and weddings and the like, and it listed Easter only until 2011, and so I thought, well, maybe the Mayans were right. But as the print in that book got smaller and smaller, I gave it away, and I don't actually have a copy of the current printing of the 2018 Book of Common Prayer to know when we might expect the Parousia. But I kind of digress. One of you guys had said, since I seem to have been using the Lancelot Andrews Press Book of Common Prayer for a long time, would I say something about its calendar? And I will. But I want to start with a bit of a sort of a general overview of the calendar, particularly as it is used by the church, because, well, as so many uses of the church, it's complicated and fascinating, and, well, there are controversies, of course, because we don't want to miss any opportunity for a good controversy, do we? Now, the church sort of inherited as its sort of, what day of the week is it? The Julian calendar, which was proposed by Julius Caesar. And it's a good time to realize how important that was. The Roman Empire was a big place, and it was one date, one place, and they were celebrating years based on when some other king had died or the like, and to sort of give an early version of railroad time, it was nice to have one calendar for the entire empire. And this was kind of what the church inherited without, I suppose, thinking too much about it, especially as they became more and more a Gentile church rather than a Jewish church. But there were local variations, and monks, for instance, one was, when does the year begin? The civil year began in January in Rome, but for many years in England, it would begin in March. And this often causes problems for historians, because when it says someone was born in such and such a year, well, it was a year beginning in January, or was it a year beginning in March? But there was a problem with the Gregorian calendar, with the Julian calendar, one which we have noticed just, was it last year we had a leap second? Julius's best scientist said that there were 365 and a quarter days in a year, and so every fourth year would be a leap year. But that wasn't exactly right, and by 1582, the calendar had drifted off by 10 days. And that wouldn't have mattered much at all if people weren't using the calendar for things like planting their crops, for instance, or celebrating the feasts of the church. And the church had decided was it at Nicaea, maybe that early, that Easter would be on most of the church anyway decided that Easter would be on the Sunday after the full moon, after the vernal equinox. But the vernal equinox, as the 21st of March or 25th of March, however one decided, was wandering around in relationship to what was actually happening. So Gregory ordered that the calendar be reformed, and he didn't leave things as they were, but he adjusted them. It makes good sense. And there was a 10-day leap forward. Now, a lot of the church, particularly the Eastern Church, I wonder if the problem was that Caesar Julius was a pre-schism emperor and Ferdinand was a post-schism emperor. I don't know. But anyway, the Orthodox Church particularly resisted this, as did many other countries. In England, Elizabeth was all for the new calendar, but her bishops were certain that the Pope was the fourth great beast of Daniel, and therefore they opposed this new calendar. And let's look at some of these others as I'm babbling on, shall we? Because here, for instance, is an example. I love these calendars, by the way. I get them every year because they have so much more than just the dates. But you see, they have new and old style dates because, well, your taxes, no matter how you're celebrating Easter or the holidays, your taxes and rents are due on the new calendar. Anyway, it would be until 1750 before England adopted the new calendar. By that time, there's an 11-day difference, as we see becoming a 12-day difference by now. And there were riots in the streets. It was even worse than the spring forward of daylight savings time. And you can also, I think, understand why Russia was very unhappy about adopting the new calendar, the Russian Orthodox Church, because it didn't actually become official in Russia until the 1918 revolution. And of course, the Bolsheviks were very unfriendly to the Orthodox Church. Now, this is an OCA calendar, and of course the Orthodox in America like to think that we are not struggling with Bolsheviks, but there is still a difference in Easter between the West and the East, and that is because the Eastern Church decided that although, yes, indeed, Pascha would be celebrated on the Sunday after the full moon, after the vernal equinox. I took Latin even. It would also have to occur after the Jewish Passover. And to make things even more confusing, there were parts of the church, the Celtic Church being a part of them, who kind of stayed closer to the 15th of Nisan, the lunar month, and would celebrate Easter on the Sunday, that was closest to the 15th day of the vernal new moon. That it could vary between the 14th to the 20th of March. And of course, this was one of the things that divided the Celtic Church and the Roman Church at the Synod of Whitby, when some of the Celts just kept doing the old dates and old haircuts and the like, but they died out. So anyway, there is that part of the calendar, and this is sometimes called the Temporale. And the two big feasts in the Temporale are, of course, Christmas, the Nativity of Christ, and Easter. And I've mentioned that Easter kind of wanders around, and Christmas is always on the 25th. And we get ready for Christmas, beginning with Advent, 4 Sundays before, or in the older calendar, and it's still in the East, and it shows up in the readings in the Western lectionary when the Nativity fast would begin with the feast of St. Martin of Tours. So there's kind of a beginning of the year at Advent, which is kind of where the West begins its lectionary. The East celebrates the beginning of the year in September. It's one of this month will be the first day of the first month of the year for you. As it says in the Old Testament, where there are actually 2 New Years, one in March and one in September, so you can see why both get used. But the Orthodox lectionary begins on Easter, and the adjustments in where one reads what come by the interruption of that cycle. But that's not all. And this, I think, is kind of where most of you were curious whether and how and what I did with the lectionary, the Lancelot Andrews Press book, because there's also the Sanctorale, and these are the feasts of the saints. It wasn't long at all before people began to celebrate the great heroes of the faith, more or less, and remember not their birthdays. The only people who have feasts of both their birthdays and their death days are Mary, the mother of Jesus, John the forerunner, and Jesus Christ himself. But not all of these feasts are the times that these various saints repose. Sometimes they're the feasts when a church was dedicated to them. Sometimes the dates of their death was not known, or sometimes when their relics were translated. Now, one of the fascinating things I think that this book does, and it's one of the reasons I like it so much, is that although it is technically a Western Orthodox book, not actually approved or generated by any particular jurisdiction, but the work of one man at one church, more or less, in Denver. John, I forget John's last name. I'll put it up there in the corner. They also include, and they're in italics, saints who are not officially Orthodox saints. Notice that Catherine of Siena, who's a doctor of the church, is post-schism. And that is a lovely thing, in my opinion, because I don't think that that Peter is that interested in the schism when he turns the keys to the doors of heaven. Now, I could be wrong. Think how disappointed the Western Church will be when they get up to the Golden Gate, and Peter is wearing one of those golden crowns. I guess that's what they have in Revelation, isn't it? Of the Eastern bishops, and think how unhappy the Eastern bishops will be if, when they get to the pearly gates, Peter is wearing a mitre. Yes, they will know that we are Christians by our love. Now, of course, this is the only calendar that I use because, as I said, I like calendars. A recent gift to me, and it's actually the only printed edition I have of the Roman calendar, is in the Divine Liturgy Daily Office. And we'll see that coming up on the 29th of May is the Feast of St. Paul VI, which very few non-Roman Catholics, and some of my friends who are Roman Catholics who do not like the liturgy, the Mass of Paul VI, are not happy to celebrate. And even one of the nice things about this book this calendar is it shows the feasts that are particular to different parts of the ordinariate. So if you're in the Ordinary to St. Peter, you'll have Oswald because he's English. If you're Southern Cross or Walsingham, which is down under in the United States, it'll be St. Dunstan and the like. One of the first saintly sites I visit every morning is called Celtic and Old English Saints. It's basically based on a book, but it's a lot easier for me because I don't remember what happened to the book. I sent it to a friend who was making a Celtic calendar, I think. And I am amused that, the Orthodox say these saints are Orthodox saints, and the Catholics say these saints are Catholic saints. And they do this on Facebook often. That's how I know they do it, because I post a saint every day on Facebook, usually, because it's fun and because I'm trying to avoid politics, which, well, anyway. Again, they will know that we are Christians by our love. My two books that are kind of my go-tos, the Anglican Office book has a lot of saints which are not particularly Anglican, but are saints of the bigger church. And one of the things I found fascinating is that it has the feast of St. Philip Neri. One of the other calendars that I use is the ACNA calendar, which the St. Bernard's Breviary follows, although it doesn't print it all out. They show up in the readings. And I was curious. No Philip Neri. And Neri is important in many ways because he was kind of a precursor to our buddy John Henry Newman. But I think their corresponding feast might be Charles Simeon. Now, one of the things I like about this calendar is it has the red letter days that everybody everywhere pretty much, following the calendar, the canon of St. Vincent of Lerins follows. Then those that are particular to Anglicans, Roman Catholics are not going to consider Hugh Latimer and Nicholas Ridley martyrs because, well, before the Catholics burn these guys. These guys are burning Catholics. And then they have some ecumenical ones. I find it odd that Iggy, one of my favorites, the Bishop of Antioch and martyr, is in the ecumenical. Well, I mean, it makes sense, except that on my list he would be a real guy, a red letter guy. Anyway, so let's see if we can make some kind of concluding remark here. Because I mentioned how often calendars divide us. And my goal in this series of videos, if I have a goal, sometimes I just do things because I think they're fun. And sometimes I do things because you've asked questions about them. But this is one of those things that you've asked about. I think it's fun and fits my goal. I would love to do everything that I can to help the church recognize that we need to be one. That we we like for Jesus to answer our prayers, for God to answer our prayers, and we get all fumble-gusted when he doesn't. But we don't pay that much attention to his prayer when he prayed that we all would be one, even as he and the Father are one, something that we were sort of recognizing in the recent feast of the Holy Trinity. And so what I would say in conclusion is that it sort of doesn't matter which calendar you use. Use one that works well for you, that fits well with your local community, with your congregation, with your understanding of the church and sanctity and the like. But also recognize that, I think Paul had something to say about this too, didn't he? If people are celebrating days, well, don't anathema sit them. We are awfully anxious to anathema sit people when we just don't need to. I think it's interesting that my favorite online calendar, that Celtic and Old English Saints, recognizes that occasionally there's somebody who has lived a godly, sober, and righteous life even after the schism. So, having said that, let's find a prayer to end this video with, shall we? And I can think of no better prayer to end this video with than a psalm, because the Psalter is one prayer book that we all pretty much are agreed upon, except we do, some of us number it one way and some another. Let's not fight about that. Lord, thou hast been our refuge from one generation to another. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever the earth or the world were made, thou art God from everlasting, and world without end. Thou turnest man to destruction. Again thou sayest, Come again, ye children of men. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. As soon as thou scatterest them, they are even as asleep, and fade away suddenly like the grass. In the morning it is green and groweth up, but in the evening it is cut down, dried up, and withered. For we consume away in thy displeasure, and are afraid at thy wrathful indignation. Thou hast set our misdeeds before thee, and our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For when thou art angry, all our days are gone, and we bring our years to an end, as it were a tale that is told. The days of our age are 80 years and 10, And though men be so strong that they come to 80 years, yet is their strength then but labor and sorrow, so soon passeth it away, and we are gone. But who regardeth the power of thy wrath, or feareth aright thy indignation? So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Turn thee again, O Lord, at the last, and be gracious unto thy servants. O to satisfy us with thy mercy, and that soon. So shall we rejoice and be glad all the days of our life. Comfort us again now after the time that thou hast plagued us, and for the years wherein we have suffered adversity. Show thy servants thy work, and their children thy glory. And the glorious majesty of the Lord our God be upon us. Prosper thou the work of our hands. O prosper thou our handiwork. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Well, as usual, I thank you for watching this video, and would be delighted to hear your comments about how you use the calendar and what calendar you use, and how it may have benefited you.